Oh, hi everybody. Well, welcome to season two. Yes, Gary, I remember season two, episode 15. And I'm here with, you've already heard his name, Gary, contractual, you know that. And fortunately, once more, we have another star guest with legendary security guru over many years. Yes, indeed, Rollo Davies. And today, we're going to be talking about, again, our favorite competence, compliance, etc., etc. But first of all, Gary, quick word from you.
Thank you, Ian. I'm Gary Twining-Wright. I've been in the security industry, I believe, 38 years now and counting. Over to you, Ian.
Well, no, I know. Thank goodness that's over. Now we can get on to the important person, which is, of course, Rollo. So, Rollo, welcome to the show. Please tell us about yourself.
Ian, thank you very much indeed for that incredibly warm welcome. You are too kind and clearly a little bit delusional, but I love you very much. Thank you. Gary's got me beat. I've only been in the industry for 34 years, but I've been everything from a security officer sitting alone in an office block in Pall Mall on a night shift to a mobile patrol and alarm response officer diving all over Kent on my own, dealing with alarm activations. And I've been in contract management, operational management, and kind of worked my way up over the years. But my real passion is security industry improvement, and to that end, I've done a few things over the years to try and help out the men and women on the front line, like development of a magazine, a free magazine for frontline security officers with my old friend Micheal Sullivan. That was called TPSO, the Professional Security Officer magazine. And then we came up with a membership organization basically to provide a column of support for our peers in the industry, which was the Guild of Security Industry Professionals. Yet again, another free organization to join, because let's face it, our colleagues at the front line are some of the most poorly paid people in the industry. So trying to charge silly amounts of money for anything whatsoever is just not gonna work. So I suppose I'm an industry commentator and improvement campaigner first and foremost.
Well, as I recall, I think you're a little bit more than that. Have we not won an award or two? I mean, just so that you know that I'm not delusional, folks. This guy has actually won awards. I have won none. So I think it's only fair to say that you are an influencer of note, no doubt.
Well, yet again, very generous of you to say so. I think back in 2019, there's an IFSEC poll of, well, there's not an IFSEC, but there's a list comes out by the organisation called IFSEC Global, and they get a panel of international judges who are all very, very intelligent normally, and they vote on who the global security influencers are that particular year. And in 2019, I placed second for thought leadership. So although some judges, okay, the checks probably cleared, which helped a lot. But frankly, as far as influence concerned, I'm not big on the term, and I very, very rarely have control of the TV remote at night. So what it is I'm supposed to influence, I don't really know. But and the Security Institute, I was quite proud to win an award called the George Van Shalwick Award for outstanding contribution to the UK security industry, and that was very much on behalf of my colleague Micheal Sullivan at the time, and that was for introducing the magazine and getting the guild underway, and we launched a research initiative into violence against security officers and little bits and pieces like that. So you've done some research here, and I thank you for it, but it's all a little bit embarrassing, really.
That's all right. That's what I'm here for. My job is to have guests on and then embarrass them. That's what I do. But the good news is you won't need to be worrying about thoughts here, because it's me and Gary you're with, and we very rarely have a thought between us of any note. So let's crack on with Gary now. This is patiently pining, waiting to ask a question. Gary.
Thanks, Ian, and welcome, Rollo. It's great to have you on board. Let's kick this off. I mean, we've been talking about competence and competency and competence. What are your views on this, and what do you think? What is a competent? We're talking about guest safety officers. So, what is a good, competent guest safety officer to you looks like?
Well, I've got to say, I have been somewhat pleased with the way the SI has gone with regards to training and the new top-up training over the last few years. But competency, especially with a guest safety officer, you're going to need to be personable. You're going to need empathy. Empathy is a massive quality, immensely helpful when it comes to deflating potentially violent situations. As you know, if you can put yourself in the position of the person who's going completely postal in front of you, and I find agreeing with a lot of people when they're trying to argue with you really deflates them because they have absolutely nowhere to go. But we need people with empathy, people with good communication skills, people that are professional and well trained, and when the worst happens, people that are robust enough and know what to do. Because you know, Gary, I think we've all worked. I worked doors in the 1990s, so we're going back an age. But the skills you learn that keep you safe and the abilities you acquire, if you don't practice them, they tend to disappear. Especially when it comes to things like first aid or physical intervention. So we need empathetic, good communicators who are well trained, professional, and probably self-motivated enough to maintain those skills.
You hit some fantastic points there. When we talk about keeping those skills up, I mean, one of the things is we all know once you've done your course, unless you've got a real good company, those skills are not going to be continued. I posted a video a few weeks ago. I don't know if you ever saw it about the old style doorman down in Camden Palace. Did you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just literally the old style. One of the things which always comes up for me personally is we have a lot of people in the industry who cannot deal constantly with violent interactions. Now, I'm not saying everyone has to be an MMA star or anything like that, like the new film Roadhouse. Let's not go down that path, you know. But what I'm saying is we've got a lot of people out there who don't train, who don't keep their physical training up to a high standard. And when things go push to shove, we've got our interaction skills. We're meant to de-escalate the best we can. But when it crosses that line and people aren't doing these extra courses or they're not training themselves, they're not. Is that being competent or is it not being competent? I mean, what's your view on that?
We all know there are problems with the SIA, and the emphasis I think they put on certain aspects is purely there for the public and not the protection of the door supervisors or the guest safety officers, which is a crying shame. Whereas back in the day, you needed to rely on the person you were working with to cover your back when you needed to go into a nasty situation. I think there are many problems today with the way the SIA works and with the sort of caliber of people we see on doors potentially. There is the physical intervention is all geared towards pacifying, really, isn't it? Someone who's violent or aggressive. It doesn't go a great deal beyond that. And I remember back in the day, when it really kicks off, there was also a horrible amount of one person, I was going to say one man doors, I do apologise. There were also a horrendous amount of one person doors in the West End and all over the place at the time. Immensely dangerous. Now, back in the day, and this was police guidance as well. If you're dealing with a one-to-one situation and you have no backup, you had to escalate your level of aggression above that of the person you were facing in order to pacify them. Now, it seems it's very much like back off, and if necessary, have it on your toes. And I don't see that's going to help anyone that's left in a room with a potentially violent punter. But yeah, the focus has moved drastically, and I still feel that self-preservation and ensuring the safety and well-being of your colleagues should be first and foremost. And that's not what the SI is about, unfortunately. It's all about public safety and not ours.
I couldn't agree more with you. It is based. That whole thing is based on public safety. I mean, we see their social media content. It's all about a good door supervisor or guest safety officer knows what to do in a violent situation. But we seem to be churning out a lot of. We do churn out a lot. Well, we don't personally. Let's get right. The industry churns out a lot of people, i.e., people on, for example, student visas. Go and jump on board, get a student visa, and get a door license. And we've got a big influx, especially in London at the moment, big influx of these student visas guys jumping in, and they've done the course, they're compliant in the course, but they're not competent in dealing with these situations. And a lot of them are foreign nationals, and they've got a very, very poor idea of the English culture, and they can't deal with that. And when we're talking about, as you say, if it push comes to shove, and we're now into that point where we've got to look after one another, these people don't. They're not competent to be in that point. We talk about blaming the SIA. Is the SIA to blame, or is it awarding organisations? Who is to really blame regarding the competency for this training element? Which, as we say, I go back to the 90s, and it was a case of, listen, mate, we're now toe to toe. If we're going to go down this path, we're here. End of story. We did escalate to that point. It worked, I'm afraid. It did work, and things got nullified very quickly. But how can we change this? How can we get these people to understand, they've got to be able to deal with these situations?
You know what, Gary, you've highlighted the biggest problem within the guest safety officer industry right now, and it is the caliber of the people that are being licensed with a DS license. I don't think necessarily, however, you said that these people that have these licenses have done the courses. Now, there is a lot of hoo-ha across social media at the moment, and a lot of companies being exposed that have been practically selling certificates. And what should be a 6-day DS course, people are being charged maybe £150, £200 more than they should for a normal course, and just being told to arrive on the afternoon of the exams and then coached through the tests. So it is a case of there is a lot of malpractice within the security industry. There is also, as you say, this does affect a lot of foreign nationals, and there is a lot of exploitation going on to the extent that I'd even call it organised crime, modern slavery. People are being brought in. There is evidence that supports this that I've been talking to colleagues about. People are being brought in from Asia, from sub-Saharan Africa. They're being on student visas, as you say, which is the primary way of getting people into the country. They're then being put up in houses of multiple occupancy, paid for by the security companies that have brought them over. They're then given their security training certificate, and it's always a DS badge they apply for, because it gives flexibility to the company that are sponsoring them to send them out to events, to send them out to here, there, and everywhere. And frankly, you've highlighted communication problems. Some of them would be an absolute danger to themselves and those around them in a real emergency situation. And these are things that the SIA is now looking at. I know the BBC are currently doing a documentary looking at this sort of thing as well, that hopefully will be coming out in the not too distant future. But there is a massive amount of malpractice in the industry, and it is making life dangerous to those in the industry that are professional, that are trying to do a good job. Because having someone standing next to you that can't communicate, that doesn't actually know what they should be doing in an emergency, or has the ability to tell people in an emergency what they should be doing, it's only a matter of time before someone dies as a result of this. And I think that is not the time to act. The time to act is clearly now.
The one thing I want to sort of pick up on here, because I think, in terms of balance, we've got to make sure that what we say is right. The SIA, as we all know, is under a tremendous amount of pressure at the moment. It has asked for and not been given, has asked for from the Home Office and not been given the support it needs. For as long as the SIA are unable to have business licensing, we will have problems. And for sure, whilst the SIA are unable to work in lockstep with Ofqual, the AO, the regulator for the awarding organisations and training providers, we will have problems. Going back to what you said, Rollo, which was instructive. Mark Rowe wrote a wonderful little piece the other day, for a professional security officer. He wrote a very nice piece where he commented on the things that you're talking about the number of people that have arrived into the country, the number of SIA licenses that are being granted to overseas people, the decline in the indigenous people as well. But, and here's something I do know, I would agree with you and absolutely entirely that these people are being brought over. It's systematic. There are people being brought over into the country on student visas. However, they are all coming through to learn English as student visas. So you can't really fault an AO, can you, for saying that they can't speak English, because that's what they're coming over. And the training that many of them are receiving, it's the full amount. The AOs are going in and checking and seeing them work. I know that that's a fact. And they can't, there's nothing that they can do. But that doesn't necessarily rule out what you're saying, does it, Rollo?
No, as I say, it's with every check and balance that the SIA brings in to prevent malpractice, practically within days, the more dubious organisations out there that want to make a fast buck have found ways to circumvent them. So this is ongoing and probably will be for time immemorial. But you are right when you say the SIA really wants mandatory licensing of security companies. It was a massive omission in the Private Security Industry Act when it was set up. And it's what the industry has been crying out for a couple of decades now. And the thing is, the SIA also want this. Speaking to the senior people within the SIA, so it's not their fault. And you are absolutely right when you talk about the Home Office, Ian, because it is the Home Office who have the power to step in and authorise the SIA to commence that licensing. And nobody is quite sure regarding their motivation as to why that isn't happening. So the Home Office are pretty much the villains of the piece here, not necessarily the SIA.
Gary?
No, we just hit the nail on the head. I mean, going back to the training, I mean, we're saying that the awarding organisations are going and checking. They're only checking the number of people. I mean, I'm still getting it now where we've got people turning up. I mean, I had it a few weeks ago where I had 2 Asian nationals turn up, both with DS licenses, and the female person had needed a translator to talk to me, but wanted to work a job in a nightclub. And I went, you can't speak English, but how have you managed to do the level 2 English exam? And that was translated, and they had no idea what I was talking about. Obviously, we didn't employ them.
Yeah, it's awful. It really is awful, Gary, and it's endemic. And the SIA, that their hands are very much tied because they can't get involved too much in the training side of enforcement because, as they rightly say, it's Ofqual. But as you know, Ofqual are busy playing with schools and doing the stuff they've done for decades. They don't want anything to do with the security industry. They don't understand it. They can see there's a regulator for that industry. So pretty much Ofqual won't be looking at the awarding bodies or doing a great deal of enforcement because they haven't got the tools, the ability or the experience in dealing with any of this. So it's when it comes to training malpractice, it's something that I don't think is going to go away for some time. Horrible.
Do you think that the time's arrived, Rollo, for the industry to have its own awarding organisation. Now, I know we used to have CITO, and I know that we used to, that the BSIA and says and skills, etc., the security, and is it Skills for Justice that is one that they have?
Oh, the Skills for Security thing. Yeah, the
Skills for
BSIA's
Security
spin-off, yeah.
Yeah, a spin-off, yes. But
No.
has it got legs as an idea?
I certainly don't think that that's a bad idea at all. Having an organization that actually understands the nitty-gritty of the industry that they're training people to enter would be hugely beneficial. The problem would be how would they maintain the integrity of that organization? What sort of people would they put in? Because as we all know, when there are problems within the industry, the SI reaches out to what they call the traditional stakeholders. There are lots of stakeholders that the SI always speaks to, and they're always the same companies, and they're always the same people that have done nothing to improve the industry over decades, because they have vested interests in maintaining the status quo. So there will be, it's a very good idea, Ian. I think it really is, and probably something that would there'd be a great deal of value in investigating that further, I think.
Well, I think a good point there is about it's always the same stakeholders. And one thing which I think I was talking to you earlier about, Ian, it's people who've not been in the industry or never really done anything from ground roots upwards are making a lot of decisions about the personnel out on the ground. They've got no real idea. They've never stood in front of that really aggressive person like some of us have. Or they've never dealt with the person who just, they've become suicidal or slashed their throat open. They haven't dealt with the vulnerable female who's now in a terrible situation. And they sit there and they sit behind their big desks and they make up their decisions. And this is what I think, well, I say it's a problem. They're out of touch. And it's like, you find this in many services, the NHS, the police service. You've got these people who are out of touch and not on the ground and have that feel for it. What do you feel?
Yeah, you are correct. And the way the SIA operates as well, I think, is fundamentally holding back any progress or any understanding of the industry, because anyone that goes for a senior role at the SIA, if they have a security background, it's almost as if they're automatically discounted from any participation in the organization. And I haven't got the figures in front of me or the job titles, so I will talk in generalizations here. But if you have a look at the non-executive directors that the SIA has appointed over the years, there's people that are have been in the fire service. There are people that have been in senior civil service positions. I can remember a few years ago when the CEO at the time of the Security Institute, Rick Mountfield, applied to be a non-executive director. This is a guy that understands the industry. He knows the people and the faces. He knows the problems that are being encountered, and he didn't succeed. I think the person that got the role in front of him, yet again, had very little to do with anything to do with the frontline security. So the level of detachment our regulator has from what's really going on is concerning, and I think you're right. It's a big part of the problem.
I think the other, again, yeah, because and it's not about wanting to be, because Gary knows I'm an SIA fanboy. I am. I think, because I had this discussion a couple of weeks ago at a conference. So they're all whinging on about the SIA. And I said, would we need a regulator? Oh, yes, we need a regulator. They all agree we need a regulator, but we just don't like what the SIA are doing. And I think it goes back to your point that you made earlier. The Home Office determine and the government determine the level of powers that the SIA can have. That said, I would certainly go along with your view that it's not representative enough at the top. And I think the best way I can put this, and I'd love your opinion, is, for me, like most institutions, as you say, because it's the same faces revolving around the institute of this, the institute of that, DEFCON this, ACAB that, whatever it is, it's all the same thing. Yeah, is they're all good. They created this, it's like the frosting on the cake. You know, they've got the infrastructure and it's all the frosting. And we've got the cherry on the cake, you know, but we've forgotten to bake the cake. There's no cake in the middle. You know, the frosting, it's all policies, academics, etc., etc. But there is no foundation, i.e., no cake. But how wrong am I, Rollo?
You're not wrong at all, and I support the SA massively as well. What people don't realise is that, in a nutshell, let's sum it up. The whole Private Security Industry Act was brought in to protect punters from psychotic doormen that basically were criminals all through the 1980s and 1990s. They were dealing drugs, they were beating people to a pulp, right? And because of the public outcry and the fact that every Friday and Saturday night intensive care ward to be full of people that were the victims of these door people,
I think
that
that's
is
a bit
pretty
harsh.
much that's pretty much why the Private Security Industry Act came into force. As it was being written, they kind of thought, well, okay, well, we can't just do this to door supervisors. We'll have to spread it out. But everything beyond protection of punters in licensed premises is a bit of an afterthought. And therefore, the SA hasn't got the authority to do pretty much any of the stuff we really need doing to make the industry better. They're just there to provide a framework that people follow that protects the public. So no failures are down to the people that work with the SA. There are a lot of really intelligent people there.
Yeah, there are.
doing really good work. And they're as probably frustrated as we are that they can't do any more towards actually improving the industry. I think you're right. There is a cake that isn't baked at the moment. The regulator can't, because the regulator doesn't really have the power to turn the gas on. It's going to have to be us. It's going to have to be leadership within the security industry getting together, coming up with good ideas, some new thinking, and let's not keep turning to the same old stakeholders for assistance, because there's nothing there.
True, very true. As you say, it is the same old stakeholders, and you know, all they do is they blow smoke. You know, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job. In fact, you guys are great. I'm not going to name names, but I think we know most of them who they are. I know we're coming now to an end of time, but it's something I want to turn towards, because we're always talking about at the moment what's not being done. And one of the things which we know you are for is the Guild of Security, which you guys set up with, what's the gentleman's name?
Micheal Sullivan.
That's it, Mike Sullivan. Couldn't remember Mike's name. Sorry, Mike, if you're watching. It's brain injury last year, still plays up. But one of the great things that you guys are doing is your free courses. Now, I've done a few of your free courses. They're pretty cool. They're free and they're out there. You know, and we've got people out in the ground. Let's give that a bit of promotion, because we talk about competency and we want these people out in the ground to be confident. You guys put up some great courses out there. If you can just run them off for us and tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, right. First of all, I had to step away from the Guild of Security Industry Professionals probably a couple of years ago.
Okay.
So Micheal Sullivan has been very much doing this on his own, which has made his work even more impressive. I take my hat off to him. He's a real force of nature. But we've had to be, in the early days, we had to build relationships, and we had to speak to the people that have the knowledge and the ability to produce these courses. And you know, we can't sell stuff. There are organizations out there that want to sell lots of courses to security officers and want to charge for membership. And okay, that people have to make a profit. They are people involved in those organizations that have to make a living. But Mike and I, everything we did was not for profit. And believe me, we were incredibly successful at not making any money. But no, Micheal Sullivan is doing great work. He has just to check out. I think it's gsip.co.uk, if I'm right. Check it out. There is a lot of free content on that site, and membership is free to join as well. And there is a code. When you join, it's free. You become a member of the guild. Let's face it, a lot of people won't bother, and that means only the people that are engaged will. But have a look at the code of the guild, and it gives you an idea about what we feel a professional within the industry should be doing, should be thinking, should be feeling, and why they should be attracted to the industry. So that's what that's about. It's just people with similar ideas getting together to create one voice. And Micheal Sullivan has been doing a fabulous job, and all power to him. I wish I was in a position to help him more, but I've got to go and pay the bills.
We all hear you. We hear you.
I certainly agree with you. Yeah, because we are brilliant at not making money either. We're fantastic. It's amazing how good people who do things for nothing are always really good at it. As soon as you want to actually do something for money, you're a failure. Gary, it's time to wind this show up. So do your usual stuff.
Thank you, Ian. If you enjoy and like our content, please like and subscribe. Click the button below. If you've got any questions for Rollo, thank you. If you've got any questions for Rollo, please feel free to DM me, or you'll find Rollo on LinkedIn. That's where I met him or found him. And also, if you've got any questions for Ian, please feel free to throw anything across.
You think, forget that last bit, not to me. He's the expert, remember, the operation, you speak to Gary. You can check out our website now, I believe, can't you, Gary?
You certainly can. It's guest safety officer.
.co.uk.
Yeah,
I'll do it, shall I, Gary?
Yeah.
My life, honestly. You can't choose it, can you? You know, you just have to work with people. Rollo, on a serious note now, thank you very much for being with us. Please, last words.
Well, Ian, Gary, just thank you very, very much indeed for having me. I think you're doing excellent work, and more power to you. I'll certainly be following everything the Guest Safety Officer organisation is doing going forward, and very best of luck. Thank you.
Right, so, hey, if you want to recommend me and Gary for an award, you can, yeah. Because you were on a panel, weren't you? And we haven't won anything, Gary. I haven't won. I can't win. Oh, I can't even bother going there. Right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a fantastic episode. It has. Rollo, thank you so much for being with us. Really, really appreciated. And hopefully we'll get to have you on again. What do you reckon, Gary?
100%.
Yeah.
I'd be honoured. Thank you very much.
It'd be good. It'd be good. Meanwhile, it's time for me and Gary and Rollo to say peace out.